This is a wireless mic.
It is. Yeah, I'm going to promote it on TikTok too. Good afternoon. This is Billy Dooley here with Coach Dooley's List. I'm sitting with a good friend of mine, Korey Mobbs, who's the head football coach here at Jackson County. We worked together how many years ago?
It's been a while.
It's been a while since we worked at Collins Hill together. We go to the same barber, same haircut and everything. But Coach, I appreciate you speaking with us today, and hopefully we'll provide a little entertainment. I'm very excited about this one. So if you can, just for all your fans out there watching, just tell us a little bit about your coaching journey, where you started, how you ended up at Jackson County.
So 2005, started at Collins Hill High School as an assistant football coach.
And
did have one year of coaching baseball.
Yes.
In a pinch. Coach Paul Pierce and Billy Dooley came to me the day of tryouts when the ninth grade coach quit and asked if I'd be the ninth grade baseball coach, and I gladly obliged because of the friends that they were. Didn't know a bunch about baseball, but man, I learned a ton in that 1 year. So spent 5 years at Collins Hill, and then we opened Lanier High School in 2010. Was there 12 and 7 as the head football coach. COVID happened, and on a whim, went to Knoxville, Tennessee. Spent 2 years at Knoxville Catholic High School there as the head football coach, and then going into my third season here at Jackson County. So I've been here for 2.5 years here at Jackson County.
Awesome. Now, what, I asked the last coach I interviewed, Tony Wolf at Buford one time asked me what my hedgehog was, and I had to ask him what that meant. And he said, a hedgehog is known for rolling up in a ball and protecting himself with his armor. That's what it's known for. So if somebody were to ask you, what your football program is known for, like, what do you want people to say after they play you on Friday night, or after their kids have played for you? What do you want to be known for?
Yeah, one of the things that we kind of maybe started at Lanier, and then I've carried it everywhere we've been, is the 3 C's: character, class, and commitment. And, number one, I want our guys to be known as men of character, how they treat people, want them to do that with class. We say all the time, you win with class and you lose with class. And, a lot of times you can learn as much through that classy loss as you can that classy win. And then we want to be committed to something bigger than ourselves. And I think this game, high school football, when I say this game, has, it's taken several turns lately. People might editorialize what that looks like or what that means. I just know that my mission has remained the same. And that's, I get to spend every day of my career with 15 to 18-year-old kids. It's never dull. There is no monotony in that. You never know what you're going to see, but to watch the results, maybe not instantaneous, but results 5-10 years down the road, when those guys reach back out to you, and they're great husbands, they're great fathers, they're, making a bunch of money. Not that that's the end all be all, but all those things I think tie back into some of the lessons they learned through this game. And I hope that's what you can say about programs that I've been involved in.
I love it. Yes. And you're definitely a builder of young men. And I know everybody's parents appreciate that you've coached for sure. What is, talking about, seeing those kids 10 years down the road, what's your favorite coaching story? And not just, it could be on the field, off the field player, could be with, something that happened in your program. What's one story that sticks out that just you'll never forget?
Yeah. So, I obviously I get to talk about, the success stories that everybody sees. So I have to preface it with talking about a guy like Derek Brown, who just signed $96 million with the Carolina Panthers. He literally, you knew probably when he came out of the womb, that he was going to be an NFL football player, right? And so anybody that takes credit for a guy like that, probably needs a little dose of humility. But it's fun to watch a guy like that. But with a story like Derek, you kind of always knew. My favorite stories, and one that I tell often, is of the players, and in this case, a kid we had at Lanier, Malik Johnson, who was not a starter as a freshman, was not a starter as a sophomore, was not a starter at junior, and we had some tough conversations about, what his role was, sticking to the process, so to speak, as coaches say, and to watch him blossom into the player that he became. Ended up signing a Division I scholarship as a senior starter only. Now, we had some really talented players that were playing in front of him, so that's probably the reason he wasn't, per se a starter. Played a lot for us as a junior, but to watch guys like that, like truly dive into, okay, I'm just going to work harder. I think that's a lost art in today's world. We got guys that are, going all over the place because they're not the guy right away. And I've always had tremendous respect for his story, and he is not the only story like that. But for a guy that just puts his head down and works, and I think we can learn so much about young men that do that, and it makes you appreciate families that speak truth into their children, that it's not going to be easy, right? And those that try to plow the path for them, a lot of times when you get out of their way and you let them get through the weeds and stories like that, the results on the other side are so worth it. And so that's just a small example, of a young man that we had at Lanier, and there's so many out there that exist.
Oh yeah, and I love those stories, and I think those I hear those a lot from coaches about the kids that just keep working, and those are things. I've got a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I hope that's how they go. What advice would you give to anybody in college or who's currently an assistant coach, anybody who thinks they want to become a head coach? Because obviously a lot of things got to fall into place, but anybody who thinks they want to become a head coach one day, what advice would you give to them?
Yeah, yeah, my story is probably similar to a lot of folks, where sometimes a lot of times you got to be in the right place at the right time, right, with the right people surrounded. So yeah, as an assistant coach, if you feel like you are in the correct program, and I say that, there's a lot of factors that go into that, but if you're working with the right people, because there's nothing like, number one, enjoying what you do, right? And in order to enjoy what you do with the time that we put in at high school football, you got to be in the office with the right types of people. And so, there are so many young guys that are worrying about what this title is and what that title is. And, I would just encourage, and it's kind of cliche, but just be where your feet are. And whatever your responsibility is, be the head coach of that responsibility. If it's the laundry, do it with some joy, with a smile on your face, because those that are willing to do anything and everything, first of all, they're usually there when the time is right for them to have an opportunity. And to me, that's kind of my story. Was at Collins Hill High School as a young coach, but happened to be surrounded by guys like you, guys like Paul Pierce, who kind of brought me up through the deal. And we all, a lot of people know Paul Pierce, head baseball coach at Mill Creek. He's different. He's a little quirky, right? He's your best friend,
Yeah.
but we love him because of those quirks, and learn so much through a guy like that. And then get the opportunity from Collins Hill to go with Billy Wells to open Lanier High School. And I, I'm thankful that Billy saw something in a young guy like me and David Willingham, who's now the defensive coordinator at Milton High School, to go start Lanier High School from scratch.
Oh, yeah.
And was I ready to be an offensive coordinator? No, but he knew how hard I worked at all of the things. And so, to me, maybe we've lost that, and some of that is because young guys are, working their way up really quickly. But with that being said, it's be the best, whatever your responsibility is that you can be. That could be the best advice I give.
No, absolutely. And I love all three of those people you mentioned. All three of them played a huge part in my coaching career as well. We're actually going to circle back to those in just a minute.
Okay.
One of the big things with Coach Dooley's list is to connect coaches with vendors. And that could be in any way, shape, or form, anything that you're doing with your program. And so I always ask just for shout outs for, vendors that you've worked with, that you enjoy working with, that make things easy for you.
So I'm going to give a shameless plug today. I'm going to say Billy Dooley and online donations. But no, all jokes aside, I've used Billy multiple places. I think going back to Lanier High School, and
I saw Derek Brown on the field there.
Yes, you did. You did. You couldn't miss him. Just the ease of what he does through online donations, and the fact that you literally, your guys can put 30 emails in, and all of a sudden you just watch that money coming back to the program is a beautiful thing. So online donations, a lot of vendors that I've worked with, throughout my time, but none like Billy Dooley.
Well, I do appreciate that, and that we work on referrals. Like everybody always says, well, who else has used you, that kind of stuff. So that definitely helps. Now, circling back, you mentioned about the people you work with, and we had a phenomenal time at Collins Hill. I always talk about the people we worked with and the crew that we had. And so let me just real quick. I did not give you the heads up about what we were going to ask on this. So first off, you tell the fans here what is the crew? What's your quick definition of the crew?
So, yeah, from 2005 to 2010 is when I was at Collins Hill, and it was a group that of coaches that probably were young in age,
yes, all very
young at heart as well, young in maturity. And so those were back in the days of Lotus Notes, which is an old email platform that nobody uses anymore. And we found a common liking to making fun of teachers that replied all to emails when they did not need to be replied all. And so, it's probably a good thing that maybe the archives of Lotus Notes are no longer existing. But with that being said, it's just a group of young coaches that really honestly grew up at a place that was a really great place, that had a lot of success in sports. And it's fun now to look back at where all of those folks are. One of those is actually the athletic director here at Jackson County High School, Brad Hayes.
The artiste.
The artiste, yes. And so everyone kind of was coined with a name. And some of those we won't necessarily share because of time.
Yes.
But with that being said, just a fun place to be with a great group of young coaches that really, didn't take themselves too seriously, but all in all, really cared about kids.
I agree. And listen, we all still communicate. That's why it's fun. And so this is actually the challenge right here. So we're going to do a quick word name association. Let's go last names only. Okay. I'm going to say a phrase. You tell me the last name of the person you think of quickly. Okay.
So let me just say this. I'm terrible at responding to the group.
I made sure you'll know these. You'll know these. Yes. Okay. So the first one we got here, Rush.
We're just doing
last names. So if I say Rush Probst, who do you think about?
Calhoun.
All right, we got mid-major.
Meyer.
189.
Wellburn.
Excellent. Okay, so that was the first installment of the crew. Now I'm issuing a challenge. The first one of the crew that texts me when they see this out on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, okay, I'm going to take them lunch whenever they want. Great. So I will let you know who that is, and I'll bring you back lunch. So
appreciate that,
Coach. I appreciate it. Always good to catch up. And it made me think about one time. If vendors are watching, one last thing for vendors. I went to a school the other day, and I had to wait 30 minutes on a softball coach because he was fixing a mower. I got with Coach Mobbs. I was very thankful to get in touch with him finally. And but then we were going to come at 2:00. I had to come at 3 because you had some other duties you had to tend to. Vendors and anybody young that's getting in, if you're trying to get in touch with high school coaches, you better be on their schedule. I tell my wife all the time, you have 5 minutes. I have 5 minutes in a day to get in touch with a coach. If I don't do that, I might not be able to do it again for 2 weeks because everybody thinks you just coach football.
Sure.
Is that all you do?
Well, depends on who you ask, right? But
that is true.
There's a bunch of things, yeah.
Yes. So, well, Coach, listen, I appreciate it. Always a pleasure to see you.
Appreciate it.
Good luck with that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.